walk us through what we know about Wexner and Epstein's relationship. Why is this such a big deal? Because to me, when I saw the committee had set this depo, I was like, okay, this could actually prove to be informative if he answers questions.
Yes, good to be with you, Allie. There's never been any allegation that Wexner has participated in the sex abuse of children, but he always needed to be questioned under oath because he was the primary source of Epstein's wealth and his social legitimacy. So I think he's going to be asked what specific services did Epstein provide that justified his extraordinary trust in him, such as giving Epstein power of attorney and enormous compensation. I mean, one thing we still don't know about Epstein is how did he accumulate such wealth? What were his sources of income? And how much did Wexner pay him over the years? So there are a lot of open questions. Plus, Wexner said repeatedly that he believed he could trust Epstein based on positive reports from several friends. Well, who were these friends? Does he know names of co-conspirators? So there are a lot of questions he'll be asked today.
Yeah, there is that line of questioning. And then there's also members like Jasmine Crockett on MS Now with Jen Psaki last night saying that they assume that Wexner might come in and say, well, I don't recall a lot of it, which is a way for you to not incriminate yourself, not plead the fifth, but also say that you don't remember so you don't have to answer questions. I mean, how do you get around that if that's what arises?
Yeah, he's of advanced age, so he could say that, and they could try to present him with some evidence that he knows more than he let on. Like, for example, he said he cut ties with Epstein in 2007. Yeah. But then how do you explain the transfer of his Manhattan mansion to Epstein's company in 2011 for $0? Also, what did Epstein mean when he wrote in an undated letter to Wexner that he and Epstein had, quote, gang stuff for over 15 years? So if I were a prosecutor there, I would want to know if Wexner was unaware or just willfully blind to Epstein's activity and whether he crossed the line into a criminal conspiracy. So you're going to look for evidence of overt acts, like information on that transfer of the New York mansion and the power of attorney to Epstein. That would suggest more than just a passive friendship.
Is there any future prosecution, obviously not by Congress, that's not the role they play here, but that Congress could lay out that a DOJ in the future, doesn't seem likely this one would, but who knows, could prosecute on?
I think it's unlikely that Wexner will ever be charged with a crime relating to Epstein. Remember his advanced age. There's statute of limitations issues. There's no evidence that he actually participated himself with a child sex abuse. But this deposition could provide a roadmap for a new wave of civil lawsuits from survivors. So Wexner's biggest threats comes from the Federal Victims Trafficking Protection Act. And New York even has its own law called the Victims of Gender Motivated Violence Protection Act. And the city reopened a new 18-month filing window there. So under these federal and local laws, the victims can sue those who enabled the sexual abuse, not just the perpetrators themselves. Civil courts, remember, only need a finding of preponderance of the evidence. That's a relatively low burden. Is it more likely than not that it occurred, rather than the much higher burden in criminal court of proving a case beyond a reasonable doubt?
I think that is such an important distinction as we focus on the ways that accountability might be served through a typical court of justice